First contact. In the year 2157, an unprecedented event shook the foundations of human civilization. An alien empire, known as the Zoreth, arrived in Earth's orbit with a fleet of colossal ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen. The Zoreth, a species of towering insectoid beings with advanced technology far beyond human understanding, transmitted a single terrifying message across all frequencies: surrender or be annihilated. Earth's leaders, despite their differences and conflicts, united in the face of this existential threat. In a historic meeting at the United Nations, representatives from every nation agreed to stand together against the alien invaders. They composed a response, a defiant declaration that humanity would not submit to tyranny or oppression, no matter the odds. When the Zoreth received Earth's message, they were initially amused by the primitive species' bravado. Emperor Zorgax, the ruthless leader of the Zoreth Empire, ordered his fleet to begin the invasion immediately. Swarms of alien fighters and drop ships descended upon Earth's major cities, unleashing devastation on an unprecedented scale. Humanity fought back with every weapon at their disposal, from conventional missiles and aircraft to cutting-edge energy weapons and cybernetic enhancements. The Earth Defense Force, a rapidly assembled coalition of the world's militaries, engaged the Zoreth in fierce battles across the globe. The skies over New York, London, Tokyo, and countless other cities became hellish battlegrounds as human forces clashed with the alien invaders. Despite the valor and determination of Earth's defenders, the Zoreth's superior technology and numbers began to take their toll. Cities fell one by one, reduced to rubble and ashes by the relentless alien onslaught. Millions of civilians perished in the crossfire, while countless more were captured and enslaved by the Zoreth. As the world burned and humanity teetered on the brink of extinction, a glimmer of hope emerged from an unlikely source. Dr. Ella Catry, a brilliant scientist working in a secret underground facility, had been developing a weapon that could turn the tide of the war. With the Zoreth closing in on her location, Dr. Catry and her team prepared to make their final stand, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. The invasion. The Zoreth invasion of Earth was swift and brutal. Their massive ships descended upon the planet like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the sun and casting ominous shadows over the terrified populace. The alien warriors, clad in advanced exoskeletal armor and wielding energy weapons that could vaporize a human with a single shot, stormed through the streets of Earth's cities, leaving destruction and death in their wake. The Earth Defense Force, despite their bravery and determination, was quickly overwhelmed by the sheer might of the Zoreth military machine. Human tanks and aircraft were no match for the aliens' advanced shielding and weaponry. Soldiers fought valiantly, often engaging in desperate hand-to-hand combat with the towering insectoid warriors, but they were cut down in droves by the relentless Zoreth advance. In the heart of New York City, the Statue of Liberty lay toppled and broken, a poignant symbol of humanity's fall. The once bustling streets were now littered with rubble and the bodies of the fallen, while the skyscrapers that had once reached proudly towards the heavens now stood as burned-out husks, their windows shattered and their facades scorched by alien energy beams. Similar scenes played out in cities across the globe. London's iconic Big Ben was reduced to a pile of twisted metal and shattered stone. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, once a beacon of human ingenuity and romance, now served as a grim reminder of the Zoreth's dominance as it burned like a giant torch against the smoke-filled sky. In Moscow, the Kremlin lay in ruins, its ancient walls and towers crumbled under the onslaught of alien firepower. As the world's militaries crumbled and the major cities fell, the Zoreth began to establish their dominion over Earth. They erected massive fortresses and energy domes over the conquered territories, using human survivors as slave labor to build their new empire on the ashes of human civilization. Those who resisted were mercilessly crushed, their defiance met with swift and brutal retribution. Amidst the chaos and despair, pockets of resistance began to emerge. Small groups of survivors, led by brave men and women who refused to submit to the alien oppressors, banded together in secret, hiding in the ruins of their once great cities and in the remote wilderness areas that the Zoreth had not yet conquered. These resistance fighters, armed with whatever weapons they could scavenge and their unwavering determination, prepared to wage a guerrilla war against the Zoreth occupiers. Meanwhile, in her secret underground lab, Dr. Ella Catry worked tirelessly on Project Nova, the weapon that she believed could change the course of the war. With the help of a small team of brilliant scientists and engineers, she raced against time to unlock the secrets of Zoreth technology and find a way to use it against them. As the alien forces closed in on her location, Dr. Catry knew that she was humanity's last hope, and she was determined to succeed, no matter the cost. The resistance emerges. In the aftermath of the Zoreth conquest, Earth lay in ruins. The once proud cities were now nothing more than shattered remnants of a bygone era, their streets haunted by the ghosts of the fallen and the oppressed. The alien invaders had established their dominion over the planet, subjugating the surviving human population to a life of servitude and misery. But even in the darkest of times, hope found a way to persist. In hidden corners and secret bases scattered across the globe, the resistance began to take shape. These brave men and women, united by their shared hatred of the Zoreth and their unwavering determination to reclaim their world, gathered in the shadows to plot their next move. Among the leaders of the resistance was Captain Jack Hawkins, a former Special Forces operative who had seen his fair share of combat before the invasion. Hawkins had watched helplessly as his hometown was reduced to ashes by the Zoreth, his family and friends slaughtered before his eyes. From that moment on, he had sworn to make the aliens pay for what they had done, no matter the cost. Under Hawkins' leadership, the resistance began to grow in strength and numbers. They staged daring raids on Zoreth supply lines, sabotaging alien equipment and freeing human prisoners whenever they could. Using guerrilla tactics and their intimate knowledge of Earth's terrain, the resistance fighters were able to strike hard and fast, disappearing into the shadows before the Zoreth could mount an effective response. One of the resistance's most valuable assets was a young hacker named Ava Patul. With her uncanny ability to infiltrate Zoreth computer systems, Patul was able to gather critical intelligence on the aliens' movements and plans. Her skills proved invaluable in coordinating the Resistance's attacks and staying one step ahead of the enemy. As word of the Resistance's victories began to spread, more and more survivors flocked to their cause. In hidden bases deep beneath the ruins of New York, London, and Tokyo, the Resistance trained new recruits in the art of guerrilla warfare, equipping them with salvaged weapons and armor. The once disparate pockets of resistance began to coalesce into a single, unified force, determined to take back their world from the alien oppressors. Meanwhile, in her secret laboratory, Dr. Ella Catry and her team were making significant progress on Project Nova. They had managed to reverse engineer key components of Zoreth technology, unlocking secrets that had eluded human scientists for decades. With each passing day, they grew closer to developing a weapon that could turn the tide of the war. But the Zoreth were not oblivious to the growing threat of the Resistance. Emperor Zorgax, enraged by the humans' defiance, ordered his forces to redouble their efforts to crush the rebellion. Zoreth patrols became more frequent and more brutal, their advanced sensors and drones scouring the ruins for any sign of resistance activity. The stage was set for a climactic showdown between the human resistance and the Zoreth Empire. As Captain Hawkins and his fellow fighters prepared for their most daring mission yet, they knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance. They were the last hope for a species on the brink of extinction, and they would not go down without a fight. Project Nova. Deep beneath the war-torn remains of what was once downtown Chicago, Dr. Ella Catry and her team toiled away in their secret laboratory, working tirelessly on Project Nova. The project, which represented humanity's last hope for salvation, was a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few within the Resistance. Dr. Catry, a brilliant physicist and engineer, had been working on the project since the early days of the Zorath invasion. She had witnessed firsthand the destruction wrought by the aliens' advanced technology and had vowed to find a way to level the playing field. With the help of her team, which included some of the brightest minds from across the globe, she had made significant progress in unlocking the secrets of Zorath technology. At the heart of Project Nova was a device that Dr. Cattry had dubbed the Nova Disruptor. The device, which was roughly the size of a small car, was designed to emit a powerful electromagnetic pulse that would overload and disable Zorath systems. If successful, it could give the human resistance the edge they needed to turn the tide of the war. But building the Nova Disruptor was no easy task. The device required rare materials and components that were not readily available on Earth, especially in the wake of the Zorath conquest. The Resistance had to mount daring raids on alien supply depots and scavenge through the ruins of human cities to gather the necessary parts. Captain Jack Hawkins and his team were tasked with securing these vital components and delivering them to Dr. Cattry's lab. It was a dangerous mission, as the Zorath had increased their patrols and surveillance in response to the growing Resistance activity. But Hawkins and his fighters were determined to succeed, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. One of the most critical components for the Nova Disruptor was a rare isotope known as Xenium-525. The only known source of Xenium-525 on Earth was a heavily guarded Zorath research facility located in the ruins of Los Angeles. Hawkins and his team spent weeks planning the raid, studying the facility's defenses and gathering intelligence on its operations. When the day of the raid finally arrived, Hawkins and his fighters launched a daring assault on the facility. Using a combination of stealth, hacking, and brute force, they managed to breach the facility's perimeter and fight their way to the Xenium-525 storage vault. But as they prepared to make their escape, they were confronted by a force of elite Zorath warriors, led by none other than Emperor Zorgax himself. In a desperate battle that raged through the ruins of the facility, Hawkins and his team fought valiantly against the overwhelming odds. Many of the Resistance fighters fell in the brutal combat, but Hawkins and a handful of survivors managed to escape with the precious Xenium-525, thanks in no small part to the sacrifices of their fallen comrades. With the final components secured, Dr. Cattry and her team worked around the clock to assemble the Nova Disruptor. They knew that time was running out, as the Zorath were closing in on their location. But even as the sounds of alien energy weapons echoed through the underground tunnels, the scientists refused to give up. They were determined to finish what they had started, no matter the cost. As the Nova Disruptor neared completion, the stage was set for a final desperate gamble. The Resistance knew that they had only one shot at using the device to turn the tide of the war. They had to make it count for the sake of all humanity. Turning the tide. The Nova Disruptor was ready. After months of tireless work and daring raids, Dr. Ella Cattry and her team had finally completed the device that represented humanity's last hope for salvation. The Resistance leaders gathered in the secret laboratory beneath Chicago, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and grim determination. The plan was simple, yet daring. Resistance cells across the globe would launch simultaneous attacks on key Zorath installations, drawing the aliens' attention and forcing them to divert their resources. Meanwhile, a small strike team led by Captain Jack Hawkins would infiltrate the Zorath's main command center, located in the heart of their sprawling fortress in New York City. Once inside, they would deploy the Nova Disruptor, unleashing its devastating electromagnetic pulse and crippling the aliens' advanced technology. It was a risky gambit, but the Resistance knew that they had no choice. The Zorath's grip on Earth was tightening with each passing day, and if they didn't act now, humanity would be doomed to a future of eternal servitude. On the appointed day, the Resistance launched their coordinated assault. From the ruins of London to the shattered remains of Tokyo, human fighters emerged from the shadows, striking hard and fast at the unsuspecting Zorath. The aliens, caught off guard by the sudden and widespread nature of the attacks, scrambled to respond. In New York City, Captain Hawkins and his team made their way through the war-torn streets, dodging Zorath patrols and picking their way through the rubble. They had spent weeks studying the layout of the alien fortress, memorizing every detail of its defenses and security systems. But even with all their preparation, they knew that breaching the command center would be no easy task. As they approached the towering structure, the team split into two groups. One group, led by the skilled hacker Ava Patel, would work to disable the fortress's security systems and create a diversion, while the other, led by Hawkins himself, would make their way to the heart of the command center. Patel and her team worked quickly, their fingers flying over the keyboards of their portable computers as they hacked into the Zorath's systems. With a triumphant cry, they managed to disable the fortress's main power grid, plunging the structure into darkness and chaos. Taking advantage of the confusion, Hawkins and his team stormed the command center. They fought their way through the Zorath defenders, their weapons blazing as they cut a path towards their target. The aliens, disoriented by the sudden loss of power and the fierce resistance assault, were slow to react, giving the humans a crucial advantage. Finally, they reached the central control room. There, at the heart of the Zorath's military machine, stood the Nova Disruptor. Hawkins and his team quickly set to work, connecting the device to the fortress's main power systems and arming the electromagnetic pulse. But as they prepared to activate the device, a massive explosion rocked the fortress. Emperor Zorgax, having realized the nature of the humans' plan, had ordered a full-scale counterattack. Zorath warriors poured into the command center, their weapons trained on the small group of resistance fighters. In a last desperate act of defiance, Hawkins lunged for the Nova Disruptor's activation switch. As the Zorath warriors opened fire, he slammed his hand down on the button, unleashing the electromagnetic pulse. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Zorath's weapons and systems, all of which relied on advanced electronics, shut down in an instant. Their ships, hovering over the conquered cities, fell from the sky like wounded birds. And in the heart of the New York fortress, Emperor Zorgax watched in horror as his military machine crumbled around him. The tide had turned. Humanity, armed with the knowledge and technology of the Nova Disruptor, now had a fighting chance. The Resistance had struck a blow that would be felt across the galaxy, and they were determined to see their fight through to the end. The counterattack begins. In the aftermath of the Nova Disruptor's activation, the Zorath Empire found itself in a state of disarray. Their advanced weapons and systems, once the backbone of their military might, lay useless and inert. The alien warriors, stripped of their technological advantage, were forced to fall back and regroup. The human resistance, emboldened by their success, wasted no time in seizing the opportunity. Across the globe, resistance cells launched a coordinated counterattack, striking at the heart of the Zorath occupation. Armed with weapons and equipment reverse-engineered from captured Zorath technology, the human fighters were finally able to match the aliens on the battlefield. In New York City, Captain Jack Hawkins and his team emerged from the ruins of the Zorath Command Center, battered but triumphant. They had suffered heavy losses in the battle, but their sacrifice had not been in vain. The Nova Disruptor had worked even better than they had hoped, and now the Resistance had a real chance to take back their world. As word of the Resistance's victory spread, more and more survivors flocked to their banner. In the ruins of the conquered cities, a new hope began to take root. The once downtrodden populace, who had lived for so long under the yoke of Zorath oppression, now rose up in defiance, joining the Resistance in their fight for freedom. The Zorath, meanwhile, were in a state of panic. Emperor Zorgax, still reeling from the devastation wrought by the Nova Disruptor, ordered his remaining forces to crush the human rebellion at any cost. But without their advanced technology, the aliens found themselves at a severe disadvantage. The Resistance, led by Captain Hawkins and his team, launched a series of daring raids on key Zorath strongholds. In London, they stormed the alien-controlled Parliament building, liberating the captive human leaders and dealing a symbolic blow to the Zorath occupation. In Tokyo, They infiltrated a heavily guarded Zoreth research facility, stealing valuable technology and intelligence that would aid in their fight. As the resistance grew in strength and numbers, they began to push the Zoreth back, liberating one city after another. The aliens, their once mighty armies now in disarray, were forced to retreat, abandoning their conquered territories and fleeing back to their ships. Dr. Ella Catry and her team, working tirelessly in their secret laboratory, continued to develop new weapons and technologies based on the secrets they had unlocked from the Zoreth. They created more advanced versions of the Nova Disruptor, capable of disabling entire Zoreth fleets at once, and developed new armor and shielding that could withstand even the most powerful alien weapons. The tide of the war had truly turned, and the Zoreth Empire found itself on the brink of collapse. Emperor Zorgax, desperate to maintain his grip on power, resorted to increasingly brutal tactics, ordering his warriors to slaughter entire human populations in a bid to break the Resistance's spirit. But the humans would not be cowed. They had endured too much, suffered too greatly, to give up now. With each new atrocity committed by the Zoreth, the Resistance only grew more determined, more united in their resolve to see the aliens driven from their world once and for all. As the Zoreth's hold on Earth crumbled, the stage was set for a final, decisive battle. The Resistance, armed with the full might of their new weapons and technologies, prepared to launch an all-out assault on the aliens' last remaining stronghold. The fate of humanity and the future of the galaxy would be decided in the skies above Earth. Victory and a new era. The final battle for Earth began at dawn. The Resistance, their forces now numbering in the millions, launched a massive assault on the Zoreth's last remaining stronghold, a sprawling military complex located in the heart of what was once Washington, D.C. The aliens, their armies depleted and their technology crippled, fought with the desperate ferocity of a cornered beast. The skies above the ruined city were lit up with the flashes of energy weapons and the explosions of crashing ships. The Resistance, armed with their new Nova Disruptors and reverse-engineered Zoreth technology, clashed with the alien warriors in a brutal, no-holds-barred battle that raged across the shattered streets and crumbling buildings. At the forefront of the battle was Captain Jack Hawkins and his team, their weapons blazing as they carved a path through the Zoreth defenses. They had come too far, lost too much, to be stopped now. With each alien warrior they cut down, they moved closer to their ultimate goal, the central command bunker where Emperor Zorgax himself was hiding. As the battle raged on, the Resistance's fleet of ships, led by a massive vessel equipped with the most powerful Nova Disruptor yet, engaged the remaining Zoreth ships in orbit. The alien fleet, once a terrifying sight that had darkened Earth's skies, now found themselves outmatched and outgunned. One by one, their ships fell, crashing to Earth in flaming ruins. On the ground, Hawkins and his team finally reached the command bunker. They blasted their way inside, fighting through the last of the Zoreth's elite guards, until they stood face to face with Emperor Zorgax himself. The alien leader, his once regal bearing now replaced by a look of fear and desperation, tried to bargain for his life, offering wealth, power, and advanced technology in exchange for mercy. But Hawkins and his team would have none of it. They had seen too much death, too much suffering, to let the architect of their misery escape justice. With a final defiant roar, they opened fire, ending the Zoreth Emperor's reign of terror once and for all. With Zorgax's death, the Zoreth's will to fight finally crumbled. The remaining alien warriors laid down their arms, surrendering to the triumphant human resistance. Across the globe, the news of the Zoreth's defeat spread like wildfire, sparking celebrations and tears of joy from the liberated human populations. In the aftermath of the war, humanity began to rebuild. The shattered cities were slowly cleared of rubble, and new buildings began to rise from the ashes. The Resistance, now hailed as heroes and saviors, took on the task of forming a new global government, one that would ensure that the horrors of the Zoreth occupation would never be repeated. But the effects of humanity's victory extended far beyond Earth. As word of the Zorith Empire's defeat spread throughout the galaxy, other oppressed species began to rise up, throwing off the yoke of alien tyranny and claiming their own freedom. The once mighty Zorith Empire, its power and influence shattered, collapsed in on itself, its subject worlds rising up in rebellion. Earth, once a backwater planet on the fringes of the galaxy, now found itself at the center of a new era. Human ambassadors, armed with the knowledge and technology gained from their hard-fought victory, began to reach out to other species, forging alliances and partnerships that would shape the future of the galaxy. As Captain Jack Hawkins stood atop the ruins of the Washington Monument, gazing out over the slowly rebuilding city, he felt a sense of pride and hope that he had never known before. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge, and it had emerged stronger, united, and ready to take its place among the stars. The future, once so dark and uncertain, now shone with the bright promise of a new dawn. The end.